Many Irish country houses have walled gardens. Nowadays, few of these are maintained. Those that are have the traditional vegetable garden and fruit trees trained against the walls. If they have flowers at all, they are tucked away out of sight. But David Shackleton's garden is quite different. He's a passionate collector of flowers, and he has banished the vegetables. Instead, in his herbaceous borders and in his raised beds, he's got a magnificent collection of flowering plants. He's got beautiful irises, mountain daisies, regiments of poppies in blue and red, and I think we might even be able to show you one or two weeds. Enceanthus, David, is absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Lovely bells.
Yeah, it's possibly too big a shrub for these beds, but when it gets too big, we can always move it.
Yeah, but then you've got some large orchids to keep it company.
Yes, Orchis elata.
The Glasnevin variety.
That's right, yes.
Named after the Botanic Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get another...
Oh, it'll get another...
9 inches taller?
At least, yes.
Marvellous colour of flowers. You've got a lot of Australasian plants here. You've got some Salmisias.
Well, of course, all these daisies are.
Can we have a look at some of these ones over here? You've got a very attractive one, which is a bit of an oddity.
But the foliage is very good, and of course, most people who grow these daisies grow them for the silver foliage.
This is a relatively new bed here. You've got a very small Salmisia here.
Yes, Argentea. It's the smallest.
And the flowers are very compact and tight in
on it. Really. That's a very good form of Encana.
Lovely silvery foliage.
Good foliage again.
Good dark stems.
Mm.
This is another New Zealand plant,
yes.
Buttercup.
New Zealand buttercup, commonly. Ranunculus insignis.
Real treasure, isn't it? And I see you've got one of Lord Talbot's collections here.
That's right, yes. It's the best form of Dipterina Maria. So, it is known as the West Coast form.
Yeah, Southern Hemisphere iris.
Yes.
The raised beds are formed using old wooden railway sleepers and are filled with a soil mixture that is free draining. The New Zealand mountain daisies and many other rare plants thrive in the conditions such beds provide. David, how big is the walled garden that you have here?
About 1 acre and 3/4.
And do you still grow vegetables in it?
Yes.
But
we do.
I think a smaller quantity than even you had 5 years ago.
Yes, you see, I'm afraid every year the vegetable garden gets less and the borders become more plentiful.
So what sort of vegetables would you have now? The ordinary ones, or do you have any unusual vegetables?
Not really, no. I grow the minimums, you know.
And you have things like sea kale, though, which are perhaps not common.
Yes. Hmm.
When did you start encroaching upon the vegetable garden with all your borders?
Oh, seriously, about 15 years ago, I suppose.
And how long have you
some
been...
borders were only a year old, and some were only 2 years old, and some were 6 months old.
How long have you been gardening, though?
That's an nasty question, isn't it? Well, I started taking interest when I was 6.
So let's say...
But it wasn't my garden then, you see.
Let's say you've been gardening for over half a century.
Yes, but not here.
So in your time you've known many of the great gardeners, which to me are simply names, people like Lady Moore.
Yes, yes, I knew her well, very well.
Anyone else that you can say particularly influential on your gardening life?
Well, Valerie Scott, of course, well, Valerie Finnets. And she and I used to do many tours in England, you know, around nursery gardens and private gardens while she was photographing. But that was before she got married, of course.
And you got a lot of plants from people like Lord Talbot as well? And
Yes. Well, I was quite a close friend of his, and he used to come here very often. In fact, I was looking through his notebooks the other evening, and I found there more references to this garden in his notebooks than any other. Yes, one of the things I'm afraid I find is walking around the garden, my own sometimes. It's rather like walking around a graveyard.
Not because the plants are dead, one hastens to add.
No. But they're, you know, they're a memory of all the different people who have passed on now, who gave me material. You know, like Lady Moore, Zoe Hall, for instance. Nancy Connell, St. Catherine's.
People like Lady Moore and Lord Talbot, they always grew very good plants. Now, a good plant is very hard to define. How would you describe one?
Well, I think it's very difficult because I try not to grow plants which are not good.
All right.
There are approximately, I think, 8,000 to 10,000 different plants in this garden. I think something which grows reasonably well in your district.
So you
there's
look
no
for
point in me growing rhododendrons.
You look for something that's sturdy.
And something which grows well in this environment.
And what about colour?
Well, I suppose colour is quite important, but you get in flowers and in foliage.
Well, for example, now you have half a dozen nice blue poppies. We always discuss these and try to figure out which one is the best. Is there a quality there that you're looking for?
Blue. A good blue. See, a lot of them have tinges of pink in them, particularly if you're growing them in a rather limey soil.
Have you got any plans for expanding the garden in the future?
Only reducing the vegetable garden. But I find, I find the main advantage in a walled garden is it's a unit to work in, and I try and keep within that unit. Because so many people say to me how lucky you are to have a walled garden. But there are two serious disadvantages. One is in high winds, you get turbulence. The wind comes in and you can't get out. The other is it's a natural frost pocket. As you know, cold air is heavy and it can't flow out. Whereas on the side of a hill it would. But so if we do get severe frost, it remains a long time within these walls.
Have you retained any of the features of the old walled garden that was, the features that were here when you began gardening?
Well, there were never any particular features. There was a fernery, a rockery fernery, in the two north corners, which I removed very quickly. I may put them back again now.
But the paths which you have here are more or less as they were?
More or less, I've added paths. In other words, to get more border frontage. You know the history of these blue poppies, I think, Charles, don't you?
Yes, but this is not actually the plant that I got you from the sleeve-donnered nursery,
no,
is it?
But it is what's known as the sleeve-donnered form.
Yeah, it's a magnificent blue flower. But this one, which is called Mechanopsis sheldoni, and was actually raised in a nursery near Edinburgh.
That's right.
Came over to Northern Ireland and was seen by Leslie Slinger of the sleeve-donnered nursery. And eventually, after a long period of time, as with various different names, it was eventually called Mechanopsis sheldoni sleeve-donnered.
Which is incorrect.
Well, it's the name which it has. But of course, it is the very, very best of the blue poppies.
It is, yes.
And it doesn't seed. You've got to divide it up.
Yes, but it divides very easily.
When do you divide it?
September, October. And it should be done really every 2 years.
And plenty of compost.
Well, I've been digging in peat moss, but they grow it very well at Windsor and Savile Gardens. And the head gardener told me there that they just use horse manure. So I did plant one of the other groups in the horse manure, but I've forgotten which now, and there's really no difference anyway.
But you've got an opportunity here, you see, to try all these poppies and grow them together. And having grown them now for many years, you still reckon sleeve-donnered is the very best?
Oh, outstanding, the best, certainly the best.
And
yes.
as a blue-coloured perennial plant, it is...
And doesn't object to a little lime in the soil. You don't have to grow it in an acid, peaty soil.
It is a magnificent plant. Poppies exist in many other colours and generally are undemanding. Some are annuals, others biennial. The various cultivars of the perennial Ornamental poppy, which have bristly leaves and stems, are still deservedly popular and range in colour from white to scarlet through pink and orange, and they all have a dark blotch at the base of the petals. The Regersea is absolutely marvellous at the moment, David, isn't it?
Yes, that's a seedling that turned up at used to be a very good nursery, Blawley Park in Dundrum. I think it's probably a form of Isculifolium, but it has a much better coloured foliage.
And it's the
than
colour of
any
the
of the
foliage
others.
which is the
Is a
important
feature.
thing about it. The brightly variegated Japanese spindlebush contrasts beautifully with the young foliage of the herbaceous plants in the shaded border, including the hostas.
That's one of the best hostas, I think, for large foliage. And
very
a good
nice colour.
variegated one, of course.
Very good colour. I see along the path we've got a few things like white Geranium robertianum.
I know.
It's a bit of a weed, is it?
It is, yes. Indeed it is. This ranunculus is quite good, I think.
And one of
Really?
your large rhubarbs in behind.
Yes, when that flowers, that bulb's red. The flower stem will be almost the height of the wall.
So what, 12, 15 feet almost?
Well, 9 or 10 feet, I suppose.
And this is a plant which I'm very fond of. It's the lovely candelabra primrose from Roe Allen.
That's right, yes.
You seem to be able to grow it like lettuces.
Well, it doesn't set seed.
No, it's sterile.
It's sterile and increases very rapidly.
Very good cherry red
Good
colour,
colour.
isn't it? Yes. This vegetable Pekingese is a variegated grass from Japan, and it grows happily in the moist border, alongside hardy members of the ginger family from China with orchid-like flowers. This plant is called Roscoea. Peonies find the cool, rich soil congenial, and they soon form large, healthy clumps. There are many excellent irises at Beach Park, again ranging through the full rainbow of colours, from white to dark purple. David also has an unusual sky blue iris. It was given to him about 40 years ago by Lady Moore and has a unique flat blossom. Aconitum Newry Blue from Daisy Hill Nursery is another Irish cultivar that still graces our gardens. As we have seen, David's well-stocked borders provide copious nectar for the bees. This marvellous creature is the cotton thistle, Ornamental arabicum. It's not a native plant in these parts, but it is used in Scotland to represent the national emblem. And if you go to Edinburgh or Glasgow, you're likely to see this used as summer bedding in the public gardens. This is a youngster. It's got another 3 or 4 feet perhaps to grow, and later on in the summer you'll get lovely purple flowers. Here in David's garden it's allowed to seed, and seedlings come up even in the middle of the potato patch, which of course begs the question of, is it a weed? What is a weed? Well, a weed is only a plant that's growing in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if this is growing in the middle of your potatoes, it's a weed. If it's growing here beside the herbaceous border, it is a desirable thing which anyone can grow. Well, there are quite a few plants in David's garden which might be considered as weeds if they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. He has plantains, for example. Some of them have red leaves. Some of them have peculiar flowers. He has even got things like little white-flowered geraniums, the herb Robert. And he's got a collection of grasses, some of which are native species that you wouldn't dream of growing in the garden, except that they've got golden or variegated foliage. So that's all a weed is, something in the wrong place that you don't want it there, and so you chuck it out. And the cotton thistle can be just as vicious and nasty and prickly a weed as any ordinary old sow thistle out in the pastures. But this one is too good a plant to be regarded as a weed, even in the middle of the potato patch.
Well, these raised beds differ from the peat beds you've seen because they contain what we call a mineral soil, which is a typical alpine mixture of grit, loam and a little peat or leaf mould. Also, they're covered in wintertime to keep the rain off, not the frost. I mean, they're mountain plants.
So you're keeping them
they're all
dry?
very hard. We must keep them dry because, as you know, mountain plants are generally under 5 or 6 feet of snow, nice and dry and warm all winter. Whereas in this climate, they're frozen one day, they're soaked the next day, they're warm the next day, and they don't know whether to come or go.
You've got a very good collection here, David. You've got a tiny little rhubarb there, Rehm de la Veille in
Yes.
China.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the smallest rhubarb?
That's the smallest rhubarb.
You also grow the big, ordinary, edible one as well,
Well, a bigger one than that.
much bigger.
Yes, we have Bowles's red, which is about, the flower stems up to 9, 10 feet.
Yeah, and you've got a collection of geranium. This is ballerina, isn't
Ballerina, the hybrid.
it? And Erodium guttatum.
Mm-hmm.
A very nice little oxalis.
Yes, from the Falkland Islands.
Oxalis eniophila, isn't that right?
We don't know. It looks like a type
looks
of
like
form
that.
of eniophila.
Yes.
That saxfrage is quite interesting. There's two growing together. The near one is tridentata, and the one in front is one called canaliculata.
This yellow blossom plant, Verbascum letitia, is a hybrid mullein, which seems quite hardy and is very attractive to bees. Anagallis sunrise is a garden variant of the scarlet pimpernel and belongs to the same family as the primrose and cowslip. This brilliant yellow rock rose is an indigenous Irish species. Not so long ago, the annual flax was a familiar sight in the north of Ireland. Here at Beach Park, the perennial species provides a splash of brilliant blue. And beside it, one of the more tender species of geranium from Madeira. Tropiolum polyphyllum, a close cousin of the cottage garden nasturtium, is a perennial from Chile. It survives during winter as a tuber and quickly forms long trailing stems. Next to it is another geranium, named after the Limerick botanist Henry Travers, who discovered it on the Chatham Islands near New Zealand. Its pale flowers contrast with the rich magenta ones of Geranium madurense. Selmisia belladifolia, looking not unlike the common daisy, is another of David Shackleton's mountain daisies, here carpeting the ground under a diminutive grove of Irish junipers. Walls are a marvellous resource in a garden. They're warm and you can grow tender plants against them, but you can also grow ordinary, interesting things like roses. And David has got a fine collection of wall plants. This rose is the Burmese rose, beautiful glossy green foliage, single white flowers. It's an interesting plant because it was discovered in Burma by Lady Wheeler Cuff, a Kilkenny lady, at the beginning of the century, and she moved into a botanical garden and eventually got plants of it to the botanic gardens at Glasnevin. And it was from Glasnevin that Rosa laevigata cooperi was introduced into gardens throughout these islands. But there are many other roses that you can grow. There's the Chinese rose, Rosa chinensis mutabilis, and it is also here at Beach Park. There are roses with peach-coloured flowers, honeysuckles, many other things which you can get to grow on or in a wall. So if you've got walls, cherish them and encourage the plants to clothe them, no matter whether they're roses or just the common old snapdragon. Would you regard yourself as a collector or as a gardener, in the sense of an ornamental gardener?
No, I should regard myself, I suppose, as a gardener.
But you do collect, for example, the mountain daisies from New Zealand?
Yes, I get on to a particular genus, and then I try and collect as many of the species I can of it. I mean, like snowdrops, Helmisias, and then I might change on to, well, Cabsia saxaris I did one time.
So you've been changing your gardening?
Well, taking a liking, I say, to a certain breed of plants, and then growing as many of those as I can find.
So have you got anything in mind for the future now, any particular group of plants that you're really going to start collecting?
No, not at the moment.
It's just something which happens, is it?
Yeah, something perhaps I see in somebody else's garden on our various tours.
Do you think that exchanging plants among gardeners is a good thing?
It is from your pocket's point of view. And the other thing is, of course, I never give plants to anyone unless I know they can grow them. And one of the reasons I do this is, if I get a new plant, I distribute it. And then if it dies with me, I know where to get it again.
So it's a good thing to give away your best plants to good gardeners?
Oh, very good, I think, yes.
Returning to Lady Moore, over 50 years ago she was growing plants, many of which you have in your garden now. Otherwise, of course, they might have been lost.
Exactly, yes. But surprising, in her notebooks, which I have, the plants which we consider very rare today, she was growing in 1920s.
What did Lord Talbot grow in particular?
In particular, of course, he's very keen on Southern Hemisphere material.
Did that stimulate your
For
interest?
obvious reasons. I mean, they had the big estate in Tasmania, which he went out to, I think, every 6 months, every 2 years.
Did that interest stimulate your interest in salmisias?
No, because after all, there are very few species in Tasmania.
But he did
he brought back
help
one
you.
for me.
Mm.
But he never grew very many. He was more interested in trees and shrubs, really, I think.
Does your garden have any particular season at which it's at a peak, or are you keen on growing plants for the whole year, winter plants as well as summer plants?
Well, one naturally likes to have material flowering or of interest all year round.
Is there any particular winter flowering thing that you're interested in?
I can't really remember what flowers in winter now.
I was thinking of perhaps the genus Primula.
Well, the only primula I know flowers in winter is hardly worth growing. It's like a very inferior Primula obconica, you know, megacephalia.
And what about early spring?
Early spring? Yes, well, of course, things start to happen then, don't they?
And do you have any particular favourites for that period?
Probably one of the petiolariid primulas, which is about the only one I can grow very well, and that's whitey eye.
What about this lovely orchid? It's a British native, isn't it?
It is a rare, very rare British native.
And you grow it very well, of course, in this north border.
Yes, and surprisingly enough, it's growing in the peat bed.
And the fern?
It's the Diopterus. Well, obviously most ferns like shady conditions and damp conditions.
But it's got lovely...
well, this is the best time of the year when the fronds are unfolding.
Lovely dark scales.
Exactly, yes. Mm.
What about the trillium? quite a rare plant at one stage.
Oh, it was very rare the time I got it. In fact, I reckon I was the first amateur to have it in a garden.
But you've distributed now to various other people?
Very few. No, I got it from the I was up in the Edinburgh Botanic Gardens one year, and I happened to see a group of it, not much bigger than that, actually.
From the botanical glories of Beech Park, let me single out two. The white and pink lady slipper orchid, Cypripedium reginae. And my own personal favourite, the Australian Christmas bells, Blandfordia punicia. As the old gardeners would say, these are gems of the first water.
We've only been able to show you a few of the plants which David grows in his garden. And Of course, he grows only a very small proportion of those which are available for all of us to enjoy. I've no doubt that in years to come, David will continue to add to this magnificent collection. And just as David was encouraged by the gardeners of olden times, people like Lady Moore and Lord Talbot, so he, by his own skill and his own enthusiasm, is encouraging a new generation of gardeners here in Ireland.